Great. Okay. Donc, I'll probably like start off a bit by when I met you, which is like not a very long time ago. I met you on the Connect the Dots platform, which I'm more than happy for you to tell me a bit more about it, how long you've been with them. But it was basically on World International Democracy Day.
Yes.
And I heard you speak, and I thought that you were very, very articulate in the way that you presented your thoughts, and there was so much of a capacity of conviction in whatever you were saying, and that was like really, really touching. I felt. But yeah, tell me about Connect the Dots and why you wanted to talk about World Democracy Day.
Yes. So I am a social worker who works in different fields in Mauritius. For example, I am the founder and the leader of the Taboo, which is a small group in Mauritius which works towards to protect the environment, to help people who are in financial difficulties, and we'll also encourage people to go towards education and to encourage people to start reading books. So it's through those activities that I've met Connect the Dots, and they have invited me twice for their activities as a guest. So for the World Democracy Day, as I'm a law student at Paris du Panthéon-Assas, they invited me to talk a little bit about, of course, democracy around the world and also in Mauritius. So I talk about a lot of things. I talk about what are your rights when you're in remand, and I have decided also to speak on the different aspects of elections in Mauritius and how we can really make Mauritius become a better place by having better elections, because there are many things which are outside of the legal framework and which are left in the hands of the political parties in Mauritius which are unregulated. And I really wanted to talk about those issues because in Mauritius we have a tendency to only listen to politicians, and many of the people of this land in Mauritius, unfortunately, we do not have this kind of legal education to understand what is happening. For example, because of this, that Connect the Dots invited me to know a little bit about my opinions, my views, and also to help educate viewers on Instagram.
And I think there's like two really remarkable things that you say. First, viewers on Instagram. Because we do realize that there's only a particular generation of Mauritians who find themselves on Instagram. Most of the people, probably even early millennials, find themselves on Facebook. So the fact that you chose to also be part of a platform like Instagram kind of indicates this need and want to connect with a much younger demographic, a demographic that is now sort of flourishing and kind of like starting to get the ideas out into the world, which is really, really commendable. But also, I think another point that you mentioned that was honestly, I've been trying to get that out there for as long as I can remember. The fact that a citizen's political opinion is not given as much value as people who are already part of the public sphere. And they obviously have an educated, belief or process or just know-how on how the functions, the electoral process and the electoral functions go about. But just having you talking a bit about the electoral process was very unraveling. And kudos to you to want to talk about that. And I will probably talk a bit about another platform that you currently entertain with regard to law education of the Mauritian citizen. Um, but I actually really wanted you to elaborate a bit on that part of electoral processes that you talked about just now, whereby there's a particular number of constituents per a particular number of candidates for a particular constituent. And it's not necessarily representative and equitable for the vote bank when you count it all nationally. So, did you want to share a little bit about that?
Yes, so our electoral process is not so unique in the world because we have a lot of our electoral heritage from UK. We have the first past the post, which has been our electoral process since 1967, the elections which decided whether we should go for an independent Mauritius or to be associated with other foreign countries. And in Mauritius, we have 21 constituencies, including Rodrigues, and in each of the constituencies, except Rodrigues, we have three elected members of parliament, and in Rodrigues, we have two elected members of parliament. And in Mauritius, our constituencies are very different. For example, we have a constituency number three, which has where the candidates are elected with only around 8,000, 7,000, or even 5,000 sometimes that they are being elected. Whereas we have a constituency number 14, where the candidates need to have at least 12,000, 13,000 votes. And the issue in this specific case is that the MP, the Member of Parliament of constituency number 3, has the same salary, the same power as the Member of Parliament from constituency number 14. So I don't find this logical. So does the Constitution, which provides for an electoral boundary commission, which needs to come at a regular time interval to amend the boundaries of our Constitution in order to make sure that each Constitution has almost an equal number of voters. But unfortunately, this is not done in Mauritius, even though if it is in our constitution, because there is not the political will from all the mainstream political parties, because this should have been done since 1968. It should have been like little by little, but now it's too late, but we still can do it. But it will be really a massive work to really redesign the boundaries of constituency number 18, constituency number 3, to include all these voters. They do not want to do it, according to me, because maybe in Mauritius we have something which is where we have religions which really get into politics. So these members of parliament do not want to like change the settings of a constituency, because we have already some members of parliament have been elected for more than nine elections consecutively, 9 elections. So this is something which needs to be changed, and I don't see that it will be changed, because there is we don't talk about this. Nobody talks about this. Not even the youth. The youth are not really interested with changing those boundaries. So this is what I have to say about this.
Like you have to talk more about it later, probably.
Hmm.
Okay, cool. Oh, good. But it's very, very interesting that you sort of mentioned that religious aspect of amending the constitution in Mauritius, which is such a huge nuance and color added when you have to make policies what they are. And very well mentioned. Our constitution, our policies and frameworks and legislature is something that we really received an inheritance from the different colonization powers that were there in Mauritius. And it almost seems that not a lot of amendment went by when it comes to probably the electoral processes, the way that we probably negotiate a lot of other areas of the law. The only industry, perhaps, so to say, the only sector, so to say, that has really undergone substantial amount of changes would probably be just the education industry, and to some extent, probably the health sector as well. However, when it comes to other sort of sectors, because of the very dicey lines of what makes up the Mauritian tapestry, there is this lack of political will, either because it can go to benefit how things have been going on and let it continue the way it has been, or probably also because we do not want to touch certain social nerves that can really get several communities triggered on the island. And that's something that I believe is what is really stomping those conversations from happening. However, to exactly bounce off this question, and this is like a very dicey one, and at this at the um I don't really want to stray away from what you were just sharing right now. But for instance, even the best loser system, um, to a lot of people, it stays an archaic system today. For some people, it has served what it was meant to originally serve. Whereas some people would still go and argue that no, it still hasn't solved a lot huge, a big deal of what it was meant to solve. Um, Best of the system. Is it does it really make sense to continue having it in 2021?
The best loser system. In Mauritius, it is something which is very debated on different platforms, on different media platforms. And also in my law classes, it's something which we talk regularly every time that we talk about the constitution. We do talk about the best legal system, and we all have different views and opinions about the best legal system. But from my perspective, I think that the best legal system is a good thing for Mauritius, for the Republic of Mauritius. But I didn't always think like this. In the past, when I was only in first year, when I was in HSC, I thought that the bachelor system was not a good thing. It created division. It created discrimination against other members of
Likewise.
parliament. Yeah. So, but from my perspective, I think that it's a good thing because let's look at France and United States of America, where we see that in France they are using their secularism like a shield to kind of pass draconian laws against certain communities in France. In the United States, we have seen a lot of discrimination against black people, uh, but in Mauritius, I think that the best legal system allows people from different communities, especially minority communities, to be present in the parliament. And it is very important, according to me, for minority communities to be present in the parliament. Because I have just mentioned, in France and United States, when there is not really a strong presence of a minority communities who are not being able to be elected as they are minorities in those countries. They need a support from the state to be able to be present in the parliament. And when they are present in the parliament, they can voice out how their communities are being discriminated. If laws are being passed, if bills are being turned into or being voted to become acts and can cause discrimination to their communities, they can voice it out in the parliament. They can voice it out on the international stage because they have this platform, because they have this power, thanks to the best school system. And I even wrote an article that maybe France should take a leaf out of our book to maybe include something like this, the best school system in France. Uh, why I like the best school system also is because in Mauritius we cannot trust politicians fully. Maybe not now, but in the future we may have someone who come who has been elected and wants to pass some laws which may be discriminatory against to certain cultural practices, to certain religious practices. But I also think that the best legal system in Mauritius needs to be modernized. The parameters need to include new things. We can make the best legal system become better, and we also need to carry out a new census for the best legal system because of minorities in this country has changed, and for sure it gives us a little bit to think that it may create kind of division amongst the population in Mauritius because we are multicultural society. But in Mauritius, if we look at our history, we have been divided since even before our independence because many people do not know that our election in 1967, what has happened after this election, what type of fights, what type of wars we had, not wars but fights we had in the streets and how the elections of 1967 was won. So if the foundations, if the foundation of our country, of our state is like that, we need to ensure that minorities are being protected. This is what I think about the best user system. And we are not the only country where we have such issues. We may think that Mauritius is unique because we are multicultural, but when you do a little bit of research, we have other British colonies like Trinidad and Tobago. We have also Fiji, where they have similar issues, and the solution is the same. We need to empower minority communities to make them be able to voice out, to show that their communities are being discriminated by such and such laws, by such and such acts. So this is my views on the best loser system. And other people may think that we need to abolish the best loser system, but I think that it's a good thing to an extent, but we can make it become better.
And when you say better, how do you mean that? Because I have to admit, like you, when I was doing my A levels and when I was doing my SEO levels as well, I was abhorrently against the best loser system because you're just growing up, you've got all these ideals, you have this very fantastical idea of the world, and then you start to grow up and you start to realize that positive discrimination does has its place in society, especially like a society. Like you're mentioning, Fiji, Suriname, Trinidad and Tobago, Mauritius for that matter. But when you mean better, what aspects of the best of the system can be made better? What exactly?
Like I've just said, we need to carry out another census because the best loser systems, the calculation which is being done currently to select the members who will be elected, not elected, but who will be chosen under the best loser system, we are basing our calculations on a very old census which has been carried out. I have forgotten the year, but it's a very old census. And since then, the demographic of Mauritius has changed. The minority, which in 1967, and the minorities of 2021 has changed. And I also believe that we may like include other communities because I think that we have forgotten some small communities like the Rastas and others. So we need to cater about all of those things.
It's very, very, very intriguing and interesting that you mentioned these things in terms of inclusion, because in the past couple of years as well, we've seen a much higher sex or gender inclusion as well, in the Mauritian parliament or even in the participation of women in politics. At the same time, as much as we can go on the whole spectrum of the variety of races in Mauritius, we also cannot forget that there is a variety of gender spectrum in Mauritius as well. So it's definitely very interesting that you mentioned that. Bouncing on something that we were talking about previously, exactly with regards to inheriting colonial systems and how probably since then there seems to be a lack of, I don't know if guts is the correct term or vision would be a better term, but this kind of, like political stoicism, this kind of political mission to really start touching those systems that have existed for like so long now. What does it take? Does it take a huge political personality? Does it take a collective Mauritian spirit? Does it take a very strong and stable, untainted political party? What does it take to really start touching those nerves that we've been avoiding to have those conversations for so long? What is it, according to you?
So about our colonial ties with maybe UK and France, our laws are still we still have a good Napoleon, and our parliamentary system is has been influenced by the Westminster parliamentary system. And to change all of this, it's a little bit difficult from a practical point of view because we cannot really change what we've been doing for the past 50 years, more than 50 years, in fact, uh, to change many of those laws because In Mauritius, we should not forget that we are a small population of 1.2, 1.3 million of people, and many of our bright minds, bright students, bright academics have been attracted to other states which offer them more opportunities, more promising futures like Canada, UK, France, and all that. So to change the system, to change our legal framework, it requires a lot of work, a lot of legal reasoning, logical reasoning, and this requires a certain level of uh, academics in Mauritius. But most of our people who have been professionally qualified are either too busy working in the judiciary, too busy in politics, or others are interested in business, in the entrepreneurship world. But we have few people who are really interested to change, to bring a change to the legal framework, to bring it a little bit more Mauritian. Uh, this can be seen by the number of books which have been written by Mauritian legal practitioners. I think we don't have too many Mauritian legal books. One of my favorite books is the book of Dr. Milan Mitterrand, who wrote a book about the constitution of Mauritius with commentaries. But apart from that, we don't have too many. We have some other books, but it's very limited. We need to create really a strong, uh, a strong community who understands the law, who really understands the political scene in Mauritius, and who also has an insight how the judiciary works. It is only then we can cut our ties with those colonial states. But according to me, it will be very difficult. We need to amend the laws little by little,
Ideals, yeah.
like we are doing in Mauritius. We try to amend our constitution. We try to pass to vote bills into acts to amend the code Napoleon. That's what we should do, according to me.
It's honestly, again, like I'm just staying stunned with what you just shared, because I myself am a huge fan of anthropology and sociology, and I do sort of want to get into academia eventually when it comes to those particular fields of study. But it never quite dawned on me that it's very true what you're saying. The state of academia in the legal sector in Mauritius is not necessarily the most prolific, is not necessarily the most sponsored, whether it's by the state or whether it's by an active interest by people who are living in Mauritius themselves, or by people who, like, by the Mauritian diaspora who are living elsewhere across the whole world. Regarding this exactly now, when we talk about academia, that's definitely something that is, probably at a tertiary level. It definitely comes at a point in time where people are a bit more stable in their lives. It comes to a certain level of maturity. However, to connect back with what you mentioned previously, with how a lot of people are not very aware of Mauritian history. I would like to kind of expand a bit more on that, to kind of like talk a bit about the lack of law education in primary school, in secondary schools, even before we jump into tertiary education. Just because, I mean, we're not so separated by our ages, so we probably use the exact same books in our primary schooling. But when we talk about Mauritian history, yeah, sure, we did talk about the Portuguese and Arab sailors. We did talk about the Dutch settlement. We talked about the French settlement and colonization. And we all beautifully know about the naval battles and the British colonization eventually. How much do we talk about the fight for independence? How much do we talk about there was and still are a lot of Mauritians who believe that we shouldn't have asked for independence? Um, how much do we talk about the different parties and different groups and their active stakes in the fight for independence? How much do we talk about the strikes that happened in the country following 1968? Um, because these are things that have always concerned me, and probably not to kind of like take away too much of, oh, we're not taught at all about this, because it also lies on students shoulders to kind of like have an interest in it on their own. probably, in what we used to be known as a Form 3, which would now be grade 9, we do know about family court, we know about district court, we do know about different courts. Um, but how appalled are you that um, Mauritian history and law education is, dare I say, absent um, in primary and secondary schools? What do you think?
Yes, this is true. In the Mauritian schools, we do not really learn about our history, our fight for independence. Many of my friends still think that we fought against the British to win our independence, which is not the case. And there are also many students in secondary school who do not know what are the basic rights and freedom, and they are not the one who are wrong. They have not been taught at school. They have not been uh, showed that we do have a constitution of Mauritius. Even myself, at the level of SC of school certificate, I didn't know that we have a constitution. But today, I'm studying law, so I think that it is very important to include legal education in secondary school, because we have lots of bright minds in Mauritius who can become excellent lawyers. But unfortunately, because we do not have a legal education, a legal subject in secondary school, is that they are afraid to take the step to go to study uh, in the legal field later on when they have to choose the tertiary courses. And myself, it was really difficult to take the risk to learn something which is new, to choose the LLB course, because I don't know what is legal education. I didn't even know what are my rights and freedom. What does LLB stand for? I didn't know anything, but I still took a risk. It was a huge risk, of course, and this is the issue that we have in Mauritius. Students will be afraid, and of course, it's justified. They will be investing a lot of money, a lot of time. They need to be sure, and by introducing a legal subject in secondary school, they will be able to know whether they are interested, whether they are capable of pursuing a career in the legal field. On the other hand, we also have an issue in Mauritius where we are taught only a historical side of Mauritius, where we have been colonized, where there have been fights between France and the British, and we know about the Battle of Grand Port and everything, but we don't know
That's right.
about the elections of 1967. We don't know about how we won our independence. There was not a fight against the colonial forces. There was a fight amongst ourselves, a fight that was created in our minds, because the British really wanted to give us the independence. It is not because
So
that,
true.
yeah, it is not because that they have been tired with the island of Mauritius. It is because around the world at this time there was a movement for independence. We have started this movement at that time worldwide for
Independence.
exactly to have a sovereign states, to have democratic states. So we didn't really fight for our independence. We were being granted our independence. We were being offered our independence, but we didn't know whether we wanted to be an independent state or not. And there was some manipulation by certain people back then to win the election of 1967, which in fact the results of these elections decided whether we wanted to be independent or not. So it is very important to include legal education and also to include the real history of Mauritius in our schools.
That's really summarizing it in the most coherent way. I believe, and it's so important. Like, even for me, if I can allow myself to share, when I finished my HSCs and I had to take a call as to like what field I want to continue in. Like, I always knew I was passionate about the social sciences and liberal arts, but I had such a huge apprehension when it came to choosing law, just because I had no idea what I was meant to do or study or like figure out of it, you know? I've always had this tact about, public speaking and being good at interpreting different social perspectives. And a lot of people recommended that I go for law, but I felt such a huge amount of, uh, I felt scared really to choose it because I had no idea. All of that until obviously, like, I pursued a business course eventually for my tertiary education, and suddenly I found myself learning about terminologies that were very simple to understand, honestly, like due diligence, mens rea, or probably, like even duty of care. And you kind of like, it kind of like starts to make you question, are these courses, are these bits of education not included in our education system because it is believed to be turgid and rigorous? Or is it because they're trying to keep us away from, first, individual thinking, independent thinking, or from probably, we're not really sure what this is going to lend us as a country if we try to empower the citizens way too much. So let's just not touch the wound. And I think that's really scary. If I can also add, I received my first ever copy of the Mauritian Constitution when I was 21, and that was only because I was taking part in the National Youth Parliament. And when I flipped through it, I honestly felt like, wow, like a 14-year-old could learn so much from this. Basic rights, how much could that get people more empowered to know what they can um, claim, what they can, what they can do and what they can't do. Do you think that there are two questions here? Do you think that the reason why law education is not present in Mauritius is because, one, trying not to empower the Mauritian citizen, or is it not present because of, probably religious lines where we don't want to reveal certain things not to cause distress? What is it?
So, from my perspective, I think that legal education is not included in our curriculum at primary level and secondary level because most of the students we have a type of general education like in form 1, form 2, form 3, which is now grade 1, grade 2. No, it's grade 6, grade 7, grade 9, grade 8. So
Grade
in this,
7, 8, 9.
yes, exactly. In those classes, we learn about a lot of subjects. We learn about everything. And we later on we specialize ourselves in SC. We choose whether to go science side, economics, and other sides. And then in HSC we further specialize ourselves. We choose purely science side, purely technical side, or purely economic sides. And then when we go in tertiary, we specialize ourselves completely. So I think that we do not want the general population to be aware of truly how the system works because when you're studying law, you're studying how the government works. You're studying how a bill becomes an act. You're studying all the loopholes that we have, and we really don't want people to know about this. We study about procurement act. We study how tenders are given. We study about a lot of things in law. And if all of these were included at uh, form 1 or grade 9 or at form 3, it would really give all of the population really this logical thinking, this legal reasoning. They would understand what is happening in the parliament, what are the moves of a government, and why such laws are being voted. Sometimes we may think people who don't really understand how the system works, how the legal world works, they may think that such a law is in our interest, but in fact, this is not the case. But sometimes we on the other hand, sometimes we may think that a law is against us, is oppressing us, but it is for our own benefit. I'll take one example. It is the sugar tax, the sugar excise tax, which is quite unique in the world, because our sugar tax in Mauritius is on sugary drinks, and it is not on the final product, but it is on the amount of sugar that is being used in the sugary drinks. So as we know, in Mauritius we have a population where we have a high percentage of diabetes, of diabetic patients. So this sugar tax will act as a deterrent for people to consume sugary drinks, and at the same time, it will encourage the producers, the manufacturers of the sugary drinks to use less sugar in order for the tax to be applicable less. So the price of the final product will be more competitive on the market. So this is one type of tax, in one type of law in Mauritius, but when it was published, the Defi Media wrote an article, L'Express wrote an article and published it on Facebook by a post. And I was reading the comments, and everybody was saying that, well, je vais crasser du monde, je sais pas quoi. But in reality, the law, the aim of the law was to act as a deterrent for people to consume less sugary drinks, because in Mauritius it is a very big issue. We are having lots of people who do not exercise. They only consume a lot of fatty food, a lot of sugar, and we end up having a population where we have lots of diabetes patients, lots of heart issues. So it costs at the same time the government, which is funded by taxpayers' money, our money. So it is better for, so this law is better for us. It is not aiming to fill the government's coffers.
It was just a thought that crossed my mind. And it was about how Mauritius always topped the ranks when it comes to democratic indexes, and being, a beacon of democracy in the whole of Africa, and probably even like in the top something in the world. But to what extent can you really claim to be democratic when there's a certain amount of ignorance in how people understand their power and how they understand the law? What's more democratic? A state where people understand their rights, are aware of exactly how laws are made and how a bill gets into an act, or a place where, yeah, people seemingly seem to be able to express themselves, but without being empowered with the knowledge, background, or the vault of know-how as to how things actually happen. It always definitely stays a question that's quite rhetorical in my opinion. But yeah, hence, Yovesh, like with regards to all of this, if you had to give a recommendation or a change or an addition to the Ministry of Education, whether it's from a tertiary level or a primary or secondary level, hand on your heart, to make in the Mauritian education system, what would it be?
So my recommendation to the Ministry of Education, if ever I get this opportunity, it would be to implement Mauritian Creole as a teaching medium, because in Mauritius there is a language barrier. We all know how to speak Creole because in Mauritius this is our mother tongue. As soon as we are born, the first words which usually the majority of Mauritians use is Mauritian Creole. So, why, when it comes to education, we are using English and French as a teaching medium? I don't find this logical to use another language to teach the kids how to do complicated maths, how to do complicated physics, chemistry, and biology. For example, I was a science student and I was being taught how to understand difficult concepts in physics and chemistry, really difficult chemical reactions in chemistry, and in physics, really difficult uh, theories. And it was really difficult for me, even though if I had a really good knowledge of English and French, to really have a grasp, to really understand those concepts, those chemical reactions. And I find it easier for me to use to be explained in Mauritian Creole. And now just imagine another student who doesn't really have a good grasp of English, but he's an excellent student in physics. He's an excellent student in mathematics. But unfortunately, due to the fact that we use English language and French language in Mauritius, in our educational sector, we are not being this student is not able to get good marks only because he didn't understand those concepts which are being explained in English and French. I have friends at my secondary school who were really bright. Why I consider them really bright is because they had uh, illegal reasoning, a logical thinking which is even better than mine. When we were having conversations on different things, the way that they structure the arguments that they use were really good. But unfortunately, they also wanted to become lawyers. But unfortunately, due to the fact that they couldn't really grasp the English language, they couldn't continue the pathway in the legal education. And I think that if we start to include Mauritian language in our teaching in the educational sector, we will be having uh, an inclusive society. We will also be having brighter minds who will be more at ease with the syllabus.
I feel very enlightened hearing this. And I feel very ignorant as well because I personally, until this moment, took it for granted that every Mauritian is super fluent in French and English, or at least has a certain level of expressive capacity to it. Um, I did believe that even if fluency did not necessarily represent the ability to be able to express, but thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. And like, it really, really puts a lot of things into perspective for me because I was about to ask, isn't Mauritian Creole, le créole mauricien, already being used as a vocal oral medium of education at a lot of, Mauritian institutions? Or is it that you mean that it has to be formalized, that students need to be able to attempt questions, answer questions in Creole? Is that more what you mean as well? Because that's what I'm understanding from it. Because because what I could catch from your discourse right now was this, you know what, there are amazingly bright minds, but only if they were given a chance to express themselves in Creole.
Yes. So what I meant to say is that right now, to completely change the educational system to implement Mauritian Creole, it will be really difficult. We need to do it gradually. So it will be really, really difficult to make our exams in Mauritian Creole because our school certificate and higher school certificate are in connection with the University of Cambridge. So it will be really difficult. But what I would like to have in our schools, some schools already do this. They use Mauritian Creole as a teaching medium, but many of the schools in Mauritius they still use this English and French medium to teach their students, to teach just like I've said, to teach science and mathematics, which is for me unacceptable because we understand it better in Mauritian Creole. And if we ever get the chance one day to really implement the Mauritian Creole fully, even in our exams, written Mauritian Creole, this would be amazing. But from a realistic point of view, it will be almost impossible to do this because we still want to be affiliated with University of Cambridge. And from my opinion, it is a really good thing to be affiliated with University of Cambridge for our SC and HSC because it gives us a global recognition. So what we can do is to really include this Mauritian Creole in all our school as a teaching medium So all of us teachers should use the Mauritian Creole as a teaching medium. This is what I think.
It's honestly it's like really enlightening to me right now because I've had these thoughts around, the standardization of Mauritian education at a global level. Because if I go ahead and share my little bit of an experience with, moving from Mauritius at a secondary school level and then joining a very international tertiary medium, there definitely is a gap. And I would say the fact that we've been studying in English or have had a certain connection to French kind of like bridges that gap when we have to join the international community. But at the same time, as you're saying, at least having that option of getting to answer questions in Creole can definitely bridge that local gap that a lot of students face. My fear, however, is that what if that introduction kind of goes about to create further discrimination across the different social stratas of Mauritian society? Because as we know, a lot of students who come from extremely well off backgrounds, they probably already have oriented themselves to study abroad. And the fact that they would stick to this small fluent English and fluent French background would make it easier for them to have access to international education. So, is it really a matter of, I mean, I don't like, I'm not going to go and question that again because I totally agree. We definitely need to give that platform for students to be able to express themselves in Creole and for educators to use Creole as a medium as well. But perhaps at the end of the day, it's more a matter of being as much as you can good in all the three languages throughout, and if not, many more languages. Here is where I want to kind of take the opportunity and talk about your YouTube channel. So Yovesh, you actually have this YouTube channel called Zabuka, which in colloquial French, Mauritian jargon, in Mauritian Creole, Zabuka actually means like lawyer. But you also use a very mimi logo of an avocado, which is like the fruit,
Yes.
avocat. And I read your description of your YouTube channel. I read a bit of your work. I even watched a couple of videos, and you want your platform to become that beacon of presenting pieces of the Mauritian Constitution in Creole, again our native mother tongue. Um, and I can now start understanding your reason as to why you wanted to introduce bits of Mauritian legislature in Creole. But I want to ask you, why do you choose to do that at your own personal level? Is there any specific event in your life that transpired this choice for you?
Yes. The reason why I started this YouTube channel, first of all, is because when I was studying, when for my exams and for my test in the LLB, during my LLB, I usually go to YouTube to have some crash courses and to understand concepts better. But unfortunately, I couldn't find really Mauritian YouTubers, Mauritian law students, Mauritian who are in the legal world, doing videos to explain some basic concepts, to explain even complicated, complex concepts. So I said, there is nobody, I can do it. So I started a YouTube channel. I explain everything in Creole because in the different tertiary institutions in Mauritius which have an LLB course, they use English or French as a medium to teach. Even my lecturers are French or Mauritian lecturers who use English to teach. So I decided to be to give the students this option to choose uh, my videos to watch to have a better understanding of their classes. And the second reason why I started this YouTube channel is because I wanted my friends, first of all, to have a knowledge of the basic rights and freedom. Because I am tired to hear stories and to hear my friends tell me that oui, la police me battait du monde et la police inarrêté in Ramastel du Moon Inale. But so I have created this a platform for them to understand that they have some rights and freedom. It is not because a policeman come to you that you should be afraid. You shouldn't be afraid. Policemen are here to protect the society, not to oppress the society. It is when you are not aware of your rights and freedom that anything can happen to you and you will not know whether it is right or wrong. So this platform will educate everyone who is interested to know a little bit about the rights and freedom, and also for students who wish to study law, but unfortunately, just like we've discussed, in Mauritius we don't have this legal subject at the secondary level, so they can come and see what is an LLB, what is the legal education like, so they can get an understanding whether they will be able to cope with this new subject, whether they are interested in to pursue, to continue in this field. So these are the reasons why I started the channel, the YouTube channel.
Entirely. And kudos to you again. Like, I think it's an incredible thing to do. At times, it's not really a matter of just waiting for authorities or institutions to do something, but if at your own personal level you can do something, then why not? And I've always been a believer of do what you preach. So amazing. There was something that I wanted to ask you here, though, with regard to this particular line of thought. So you're a law student. You're in your third year now. You're about to graduate in just a couple of months. Um, you're like this is very intriguing to me because a lot of students do not choose to make that choice. As a law student, you're very active socially, like you mentioned previously. There are a lot of participation that you have in terms of your local areas initiatives or being part of NGOs. But not every single law student or any field student choose to be active socially or be like how we say it in Creole or in French, sur le terrain. For you personally, why does it matter? Why do you do it?
Uh, I chose to be a social worker, to be an active social worker. First of all, it's just to continue what I've started at MJS Solferino, where we have the teachings, where we have a different culture. We, for example, for Gandhi Day, we make some social work. We offer food to people who need these basic necessities. We also are inculcated with a different set of values, which has encouraged me to really connect with Mauritians to really understand what does the society needs. So this is one of the reasons why I have decided to be really active on the social work, to be an active social worker. Another reason why I decided to be an active social worker is because of my family members. I have other family members who are already in this field. They really do wonderful job, and people really appreciate them. So they are my role model. I decided to just started what they have already started long ago to continue in their pathway. But sometimes it is a little bit difficult to really be a social worker, an active social worker, because I have my LLB and other obligations. So I need to find some time to do my work with the Focaton. So I think that us as youth, what we can do to be able to put us in front of a society to show that we are worth it, we are worth a shot, is to create our own platforms. Just like you're doing right now, creating a podcast, showing the people that we, the youth, are engaged, we are ready, we are more powerful than you may think. For example, like you've just mentioned before, the Connect the Dots platform is one of the most amazing, is one of the best platforms that I've seen on Instagram. We, for the World Democracy Day, we have talked we have talked about a lot of issues, and we had reached a lot of people. So these people really get to know the youth, really get to know the new faces who are ready to be engaged in different fields, not only politics, but in legal field, in medical field, in economic. And this is the best thing that the youth can do with internet. An independent candidate nowadays can try to win an election against the mainstream political parties, and the internet is one of the most powerful tools that the youth can have today, because we can no more control the narrative. We are here, we can state facts, we have freedom of expression, we are creating our own platforms, podcasts, just like you're doing, uh, Instagram lives, writing articles, creating our own blogs, writing about different things. So this is the best thing that the youth can do, is to create our own platforms to put ourselves forward.
Totally, I couldn't agree more. And if I could allow myself again to add to that, I remember having this conversation recently with a private media journalist, and they were just surprised as to how, there were so many articulate, very young people, and I'm not even talking about 30-year-olds. Like 30-year-old for me is already so late. Um, who are just talking about how internally they lack the kind of talent, who are so young, and brimming, and just thirsting to be heard. And I'm like, yeah, like, have the courage to employ people more like us, have the courage to have columnists who are 21, have the courage to give us, to give more wind to our wings, so yeah, thank you so much, Yovesh. It was amazing talking to you. Lovely to have so many points fleshed out. I'm very sure that there's so much more that we can go into details regarding each and every single point. I'm sure, hopefully, in the future, we might have a more sustainable platform as well to continue delving into all of these things. All the very best for your couple of last months pending for your graduation. Have fun
Thank
with
you.
that. Thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you for having me on this platform. And it's really amazing that you created this podcast for us, the youth, to come forward to express our ideas, our views and opinions about different things. So it's really amazing, and thank you for having me on this wonderful platform.